All right, so how about self-talk today? I've been working with a young man who had commented that it's kind of sad washing his hands and singing happy birthday to himself. He found that, cringy. But what he located was a YouTuber that he enjoys who suggested washing your hands and saying, 1, I'm awesome, 2, I'm awesome, 3, I'm awesome, 4, I'm awesome. And this comes back to self-talk, yeah? So let's have a chat about self-talk today. What have you got, guys? Bring it on.
Yeah, I'll jump in there, Karen, just as you brought it up, self-talk. And used to play touch football with my team, and we, usually the teams I'm involved in usually do really well. And once again, our team were performing really well. However, we had a new player that never played the game of touch football before jump on our team. And so usually new person comes, you sort of start them off on the wing. So that's a position where it's a real important position because however, their involvement is limited in the game. Basically, their job is to just catch the ball and plant it down on the ground, because how we designed our play was for the wingers to score the tries. So they just stand there, catch the ball and put it down. Now, we had, as we did, plays will go, and the last pass will go to this one guy, and all he had to do was catch it and put it down. However, he dropped it. So that was the first time he was playing. He dropped the ball, and we obviously didn't get the try. And that was okay. We all knew it was his first time playing, so we were lenient on him. However, as the season progressed, it started to become a habit. So it was more than once that this was happening. And probably in the game, maybe about 3-4 times in the game, this was happening. There were times where he would catch the ball. However, it was sort of the passes where it was going to lead to a try. Pretty much those passes he would always drop. And I had done some, at that time, I'd done some studies and learnings, trainings around the mind and what we say to the mind and self-talk and that sort of thing. So I asked them, as soon as the ball comes to you, what are you saying to yourself? Or what is the dialogue that's happening in your head just before you go to grab the ball or catch the ball? And he looked at me in a strange way. He was like, oh, what do you mean? And I said, do you say anything to yourself before you catch the ball? And he thought about it for a minute and he goes, oh yeah, I do. And I said to him, oh, well, please elaborate, share with me. What do you say to yourself? And he goes, I always say to myself before the ball comes, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. And I said, oh, and what ends up happening when you say that? And he goes, every time I say it, I drop the ball. And I go, would you like to change that? And he's like, looked at me in a weird way, and I was like, oh, would you like to change what happens? And he's like, oh, what do you mean? I go, well, do you like not catching the ball, dropping the ball? He goes, no, I feel like I'm letting down the team. And he feels a lot of pressure. And he goes, no, I just want to score the try, contribute to the team. And I said to him, oh, do you mind having a bit of a play and trying something out? And he goes, oh, yeah. And I said, oh, well, next time it happens, what about if you say, I'm catching the ball? I'm catching the ball. It's mine. Something to that effect. But I said, whatever works for you, but stating it that you've already caught it, or you're going to catch it, or it's mine, I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to catch the ball. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll try that. And as our game progressed, he got in the position and he actually caught the ball. And, and he didn't believe that he had the ball in his hand. He was stunned for a minute. And then I'm like, put the ball down, put the ball down. So he had caught the ball and then he didn't. He was so happy with himself that he didn't put the ball down. He ended up getting the try, but he was stunned for a second, caught the ball, and then he didn't know what to do. He put it down, and he put the ball down as a try. And then it wasn't until a few, I think it was a year or two later, he moved, and he told me he was playing touch now, and he was telling me that he had implemented just changing the talk in his head, or what he was saying to himself. And he said he doesn't, for him, he said he didn't, he would catch the ball. And it was just about changing that one sentence or that one statement in his mind that helped him catch the ball. Just changing the talk or the self-talk to a positive self-talk. So that was something that I just, as you mentioned it now, just come to my head off the mark, just of how he changed his way of talking to himself, and as a result ended up becoming a really good touch player as a result of it. So that's my share of the talk.
Thank you. That's really cool. Good example too. Are you going to share the trapeze one?
Oh, which one's that one?
About the talk that was around the trapeze. I can't be more specific than that. Angel didn't even.
Oh yeah, yep.
That's quite a cool one. That would have been a change talk.
Yeah, yep. It was that was all external talking though.
Oh.
So that was not, there was well, it would have been internal eventually, but I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it links. Just having a little mishap, a misconnection one time with a trapeze artist, and it wasn't serious at all. And that became the external conversation for the next week, and then the presumption is that the communication is in everyone's head, wondering, thinking, because the subject has been raised, and then the thought process is running, and then there was another small incident, and purely, I believe, based on the fact that it was content. The content was there, so the mind believed it was possible to have another little mishap or something. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Got heaps of trapeze things. Sorry, mate. I know that one you're talking about. The self-belief, I guess, that's required when you are going into any aspect of the circus. It needs positive information, especially if you're working with animals. If any level of self-doubt sort of creeps in, they know it, they can feel it, they can smell it. So it's a different skill on its own. For me personally, with the many things I've done, there's always looking for a level of improvement. If you're in the workshop or doing, what you can get by with, and then it's nice to do it slightly better. And there's that internal conversation is, you could do that a little bit better. I think coaching people with their belief systems. I haven't actually spent a lot of time doing that, and I couldn't say that cleanly, but I probably have. I just don't have anything that comes into mind 100%, apart from the personal encouragements and yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a bit stumped. I'm a bit stumped on it because I can see how it relates into my little world, and I haven't looked at that style of things when working with people. Yeah.
I remember doing one of your trainings, Karen, and I was taught then that 90% of all dialogue was internal.
Yeah.
And then when it was one of those pivotal moments in my personal development when I was like, I thought about that statement. 90% of all of our dialogue is internal, and only 10% is external. And I was thinking then at that time I had a mate that just talked non-stop. You might remember him. His name was Carl Perry. And he would just talk all the time about everything and anything. And I was looking at him thinking, man, that's only 10% that's coming out of your mouth. Where's what's all the 90% that's his, the conversations that he's having in his mind, and that blew me away. What he was saying is only 10% of what he's saying inside, and it was wow, it was like, blowing me away. And then for myself, when people tend to ask me questions and sometimes take a little bit long to respond or give my responses, but sometimes I'm sort of wanting them to listen to my internal dialogue, because I've got words and statements that I'm saying in my head or internally, but they're not coming out externally. And I've always remembered that, and that was back in 2005. Yeah. I've always remembered that statement, and that's something that's always and because I've been a little bit more conscious about it, more aware of my talking and my self-talk or my internal dialogue, and I'm constantly having dialogue or having self-talk or self-conversations or discussions on a regular basis internally. And some of it's just trying to process information and, I should do this, no, don't do that, and it's a whole range of things or discussions that are happening within, and sometimes they can be discussions that are not useful, and then other times they're very useful in helping to motivate to do something that haven't done before, like the statement that Alex said, where it sort of he heard an external voice telling him that he could do in relation to going down the ramp.
Just don't be a pussy.
Oh yeah, that's it there. But then he would have heard that externally, but then processed that internally to then motivate him. No, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Boom, boom. And he gets on his bike and he nails it and smashes it and does it. And it's quite. I think it's actually self-talk is so important each and every day that I believe the information that we take in externally and in our environments impacts our self-talk or what we say to ourselves on a daily and our environments impact that. What we see, what we watch, what we listen to, what we feel and experience play into our self-talk. And I've found at times where those have been unuseful, that changing the environment, changing what I listen to, changing the music, and the music plays a big part of my internal dialogue, depending on the genre, the type of music, that can influence my internal conversations.
Heaps of those words that are flowing through.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because I've got a real simple example but it's always there. So I've learnt because of Puppy, so this is an external, about my own deciding process. So this is my inner deciding process, as simple as going for a walk, taking Puppy for a walk. So I might have other distractions that I want to do, and then I'll quickly do an assessment of importance, and he's pretty high up there for his own health. So I have to sometimes put him in front of other things. Now I'll be even business stuff, right? It's just his health is important. So I'll be processing this quickly. And what I've learnt, because he is my external, is I might suggest it out loud to him and he'll look at me. Yeah? But he knows the moment there's a solidity with it when I say it to him, or even sometimes before I say it to him, because what I've learned is I've watched the difference. Sometimes he'll just look at me and he doesn't totally believe it. And then other times he's already bouncing because he knows it's going to happen. And what I've noticed is in between those two times is me convincing me and giving permission to me during the process. Now, they don't actually come through necessarily as long sentences at all. It'll just be like, yeah, okay. So that's a agreement internal to a decision I just made. And it could be as simple as, I'll do that first and then I'll do that straight away when I come back. So that's a yeah, okay, is a sound that I feel and I hear, and it affects me. Yeah, because now I'm moving to action. And then, but that might not be the actual one that gets me to do it. It'll be like, okay, yeah. Boom. Again, those are just little sounds, but they're decisions that I'm running through in my self-talk. And then there'll be the actual, okay, which has a deeper, and I've listened to it myself, fascinated by our own internal anchors, which is a self-talk. And he just jumps, he knows, now it's happening. So I'm using Puppy as a good example from moving to, it might happen, to now it's happening. And I'm going through my own inner self-talk around that to get to there. Now I can convince myself out of something too, just about. And the same sort of thing. So it seems like the sounds or the tones are just as important as self-talk, because that's moving to action or no. Oh, okay, no. Okay, so that takes me on a down feeling, which is a non-movement thing. It's really interesting. So the self-talk sometimes has actual sentence structure language, or maybe it's even something you do, or I do, so maybe it's something you do, as internal tonal sounds that are anchors of direction that start to open the gates, start to give permission, start to let and allow something happen, getting motivation to move somewhere, or completely take motivation away. Not happening. That's my contribution at this moment. And by the way, Shan, I didn't recall saying the 90-10 thing at all. Even when you said it, I'm like, oh, what theory is that based on? I'm not entirely sure, but the concept's cool.
Oh, it was one of the NLP trainings, Karen.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we use content to play, I can't actually place a theory. But it was useful, obviously. We'll go with that. We'll call it the Karen theory then.
I like it.
Yeah.
something really clear for me on that perspective. So like, because you've got so much internal dialogue of thought and talking to yourself and agreeing and disagreeing and everything, once at a level of, so once you externally, well, so what your external dialogue is that presents is definitely what's going through your head in terms of, so if you're having a you can't do this, or you're unable to do this, that'll never happen type of thought, type of like, oh, I can't do that. So I get it a lot when I'm asking people for dancing to do something, and I can't. So hey, just do it like this, and they go, oh, I can't. So all that, I believe, is going through their body, not just their mind, but actually their body, is it freezes and it goes like it's just unable to do it. The growth of the mind to enable the body to do it is restricting. Seen it a lot. And it was a really cool to watch Robin's journey of not having a very flexible back. Now the woman just goes over, and her head's off way over there, and I'm like, wow, I've got so much space. But when we started dancing, it was really interesting to watch her journey of going, oh, I can't do that because my back, and restricting her body because it's the restrictive mind, because she's told herself so much she had to look after her back, and that was self-preservation in a way. And so then it goes to a wider thing of when conversing with someone and telling them either you can't or don't do this. I remember you working through your processes of the don't do this type of thing, and the whole body actually freezing and going, don't, oh shit, don't what? And then it goes, do this. So don't forget to get some apples when you're at the supermarket. You walk in and you're like, oh, carrots. Or something like, yeah, don't forget to get apples at the supermarket.
Yeah.
And so, I,
so that's the instruction.
Yeah, the instruction. The body freezes and then it forgets to get the apples. And I remember, when were we doing martial arts? 2006?
Yeah, 2006, 2007.
So one day we had, because you had these like punching and kicking pads, and they were probably, they were the size of a body, and they were 150 mil thick. And you had, so one day we had our class and we had them all set up so you could jump over them, and you had to go up and down and up and down. And then I was always because I was a kid at the time, but I was always in the adults class wanting to challenge myself. But we had to do all of these, jump over them all, otherwise the class got a punishment, and we kept on not being able to do it, so we had to do it again, and everyone was getting tireder. And I remember Steve, our instructor, saying, don't knock the pads over. Go through again, want to be knocked over. Don't knock the pads over. And Mum was talking to Steve while we were doing this. So there was, 30 people in a class type of thing, 20, 30. And everyone was running around, and he's like, don't knock the pads over. And I knocked 3 over that time because, getting tireder, hearing that don't. Oh, knock pads over. Okay. The whole being of my body knocked 3 pads over, feeling really guilty. I think we had to do like 10,000 press-ups or something.
Definitely 10,000.
I definitely never did that.
Anyhow.
Actually, I got another cool story. Fuck, I loved that. Anyway, and so Karen was talking to Steve, and then all of a sudden he goes, all right, just everyone listen. Get over all the pads. Get over them all. Get through them and get over them all. And this is Karen telling our instructor, Steve, don't. But just try this. And I remember it. And I remember walking away and being very guilty of knocking 3 of the 4 pads that got knocked over, and no one that next time knocked any pads over because of the belief in the being of belief in the room that we can do it and all the pads will be standing, very much from a positive aspect, not a don't.
And it got a good result, eh?
Instantly. It was, I just remember that instantaneously. And then through the journey of learning how grandma shares information of, oh, don't forget this, don't do that, and just really gorgeously, and I remember picking it up at the same time of, oh, and she'll go, don't forget something, and I'll go, I'll remember, in my being, positively enforcing. Just so, such a key thing for an external to replace it internally in your dialogue, but I find it's actually really useful to say, I will remember, or I will get this, or whatever that is. And then another thing about self-talk, in terms of martial arts, I've got so much from martial arts, but one day we were doing, I'd just gone back to martial arts for a little bit, and we were doing, like, I think it was front kicks or side kicks or something. And it was just, okay, like getting to the point where no one was, like, we had to pick it up. And I'd done a lot of elite kids class stuff. And, you know, I just had this high expectation of myself. And we had 3 chances to get it right. And he said, if you don't believe that you've done it right on the 3rd chance, then you'll be running. And I think you'll be running up and down the road for the rest of the class. And so I was so focused on getting it right. It's like, did everyone get it right? And I'll be like, no, I didn't. Did everyone get it right? No, I didn't. Did everyone get it right? No, I didn't. Oh, we'll go run. And I was like, oh. So I went and ran. Literally ran for the rest of the class. And people were like, what? Are you crazy? And I was literally the only one that wanted to get it right so bad that I was willing to go through that. This is why you should get it right. And it wasn't about that, because Steve talked to me after and he said, it's not that you did it, you were doing it better than most, but you know, you just got to believe that it's good. Sometimes instead of just pursuing absolute perfection in it.
Right.
And it just, so believe yourself, even when it's not quite right, but tell yourself it's good because you did it better than most. And I was just like, wow. But and everyone else was like, oh, he won't be running. And Steve was like, no, he will. And I just ran the whole rest of that lesson, bare feet, around the glass. I remember this old guy looking at me, and I was running up and down. He's like, oh, you're working hard. And he was down the other end of the road. It was a long road too. Yeah.
Yeah, you've just reminded me of something else, Alex, where I when my kids were at primary school, there was a parenting program, and voluntary parenting program, and my wife and I signed up to do it. And we thought, oh, you know, anything to help us be better parents, because our kids were growing and just starting primary school. We done this one segment where we're learning about the conversations we say externally impacts our children internally. So whether we give them positive feedback or negative feedback, it impacts our children's decisions and behaviours. And I was listening, I was like, yeah, I can sort of see how that worked. And then after we had done that session and that training around external conversations, it made a lot of sense to me when I started watching American Idol, when it was on TV. And There was this one particular show of this young lady in this one segment. This young lady had been on Idol the previous year, and she sang, and according to Simon Cowell, it was his definition of her singing was worse than screeching blackboard. When you run your fingernails down the blackboard, he said that's what her singing sounded like. And that was the previous year, and she didn't believe it. She did not believe that her voice was terrible or that bad. He said it was horrific. He stopped her before she even finished her song. She reappeared the following year to give American Idol another go and to showcase her singing talent and her belief. She gets up, sings again, and it's no better than the previous year. Obviously gets cut and told, she doesn't make it through. But on that particular segment, her family was outside waiting in anticipation for the outcome. And when they come out, they were all cheering for her. And they were like, how did you do? They were like, yeah, how did you do? And she's like, oh, I didn't get through. They didn't think my voice was good enough to get through. And her dad said to her, don't worry, they don't know what they're talking about, but to us, you're the best singer in the world.
Wow.
And then they asked her if she was going to return the following year. She goes, yes, I'm coming back until she gets in. But that for me was like, man, yeah, if your parents, and then I was thinking, is that false? Giving children false sense of hope, telling them they're really good singers when they're not. But her belief that she was a good singer and her coming back every year, and every year she came out, her parents just cheered even louder for her and said, you're the best singer in the world. And it sort of reminds me of Alex. He's telling me I'm the total package. I said, in order for me to be the total package, I just need to improve my singing abilities. And he's telling me, and I'm just wondering, Alex, are you giving me a false sense of hope? No, and taking it on. But and then listening to that, and I'm like, is that useful? You know, is that in reality? Is that having that information externally, just telling your kids you can do it, when the rest of the world know that you're not a really good singer, you're terrible at best. But then you're giving this information, and I thought about it, and I go, according to who? According to who are they not good singers? But
Yeah.
Bro, I really see, like, and how could that affect, and if it did a negative way, like there's actually a real serious note to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I believe, so the only thing, and I really believe this actually, so our existence in this world is only within our own minds, really. Like, at the end of the day, once your physical body stops moving, you don't get to take anything with you apart from your memories. Unless you've shared them with someone else, then that becomes a memory that they can share as well. So that's the only thing you get to have. Ownership is absolutely a fake. At what I'm going through at the moment in my mind is just fake. You only own it, like it's only a temporary lease. Because once you die, you don't take it. I can't take my Land Cruiser with me. I'm trying, I know. But you can't. So the only thing that belongs to you is your memories, and the only real freedom you have is the choices that you make within what you have, effectively. So within that, if that lady believes and dies with the belief that she's the best singer in the world, how wealthy was her life in that aspect? Because she with the self-belief of her own enjoyment of her singing, I bet she's a good shower singer.
Yeah, and I guess it sort of brings in that compare and contrast conversation compared to whom at a value level. I really love that. I loved that share, that very profound, beautiful thing. The only thing you can take with you are your own experiences and memories, my words, you know. Now here's something interesting. When we're working with people, it's always easy to explain it from this, because then there's always a self experience which is different. So far more subjective within that space. So when we're working with people in an outcome frame, what we're really doing is opening up a possibility for them to grow into something beyond what they currently are being. Does that make sense? So potential, opening up a space for potential, not a space to walk into a lie, not a space to, none of that. It's not that. If somebody's doing them the way they're doing them now, just like anyone else in the world, there'll be levels of limitation, identification, I cans, I can'ts, I won't, my experiences in the world. What a really cool coach does is they open up a space of possibility. What would happen if you could? Now, one of the words we've used for years and years is that whole saying about, speak to the person that you either wish them to become or that they could become. So inviting someone to step into being differently, inviting someone into the opportunity to find out that the old beliefs are just rules, just ideas. Opening up the possibility for someone to explore bigger. Here might be a useful metaphor. So if a chook was in a small little pen, a couple of chooks were in a small little pen for a while, they might look out through this is just a concept, they'll look through the wires and see, but they can't get through the wires. Sometimes that's what limiting beliefs are like. They can't build themselves because they've been contained by whoever contained them into this chook house. They can't build themselves another chook house, but naturally that chook could survive with or without the owner. Does that make sense? With or without the person who put them in a chook house. If they get to the chook house taken away and get to go free, they'll keep exploring. So sometimes it's the limitation of the parent or the people around or society that actually cages a concept or an idea or a belief or a possibility. So from the parenting thing, Shannon, to use the same metaphor, effectively we keep our kids in a safe cage as they grow up, just the concept of it, safe caging, because our experiences indicate that there's wolves right outside the door that they're best to be kept in a cage. Now in New Zealand, they could be free range, but if we lived in a different country, it might be that there were wolves out there and they are safer behind a chook pen. So this is the concept in here, is it's like it always depends. If we're being a coach, we're offering new possibilities and new scope for someone to step into something. And for our children, we are offering some levels of safety until we need to take our own things off and let them fly. Now, this is different when we turn it back into our own self-talk. Most of our own self-talk will have been borrowed by other people. Ultimately, they'll be exactly what you said earlier on, the things we've listened to, or the people that we grew up with, or what we believe about ourselves. and the potential and possibility or not. So it's always cool. Alex will always be one of the first ones to challenge me around a limiting belief that'll come up. Now, if he didn't do that, I don't sometimes know how long it would take for me to open up that possibility within my own subjective nature, because it would only really happen if I wanted something completely different than how I was presenting on a subject. Now, that means I would then wrestle with my own cage in order to expand it or remove it. Now, sometimes when somebody's external to you, they can easily go, hey, here, I'll lift the level of the cage for you a little bit and you can sneak out. You can get out of your own thinking. You can get out of your own caged ideas. So, yeah, self-talk is, as much as I said at the beginning, it's a subtle process we go through. It's also really a group dynamic. Yeah, it's kind of...
I like that. I found interesting what you said. Often most something you said something around all self-talk is borrowed.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, the self-talk that you have is borrowed. I just liked
That's the copyright person.
yeah, exactly. And talking about the American Idol incident where New Zealand had that, and I remember friends when it came to New Zealand, I was encouraging my friends to go for it because I believe they were amazing singers, great singers, and I believe that we all know somebody that's an amazing singer, but never puts themselves in that position or out there or in front of someone to progress that, or they don't get outside the cage, so to speak, to explore it or experience it. And I would often talk to them and ring them, and like, man, you're 10 times better than these people who win it, in my opinion, in my belief, and what I've heard. And I was like, man, you could have won that. You could have taken that out. You're an amazing singer. But they were like, oh, no, I'm not. No. I'm not, but they, like, in that analogy, like I said, that the cage has been lifted, but sometimes we choose not to explore outside that cage, where others, they're nowhere near the mark, but they would get out there and at least give it a go and trial and been put out there. And I've just always found that interesting, where at times we often come across people or talk with people with that potential to be, in this case, great singers, but they never even apply. They don't set out, write an application or do any of that process to head down that line or head down that track.
And well, with that, like, there's that internal self-belief possibly that they don't think they can achieve that. And sometimes there's just the desire not to bring it to nature. You know, like if someone doesn't, you know, they're happier not. That was an old truck. If someone is happier not being competitive and not putting themselves forward, that's really cool, I think, for them. I just believe in some instances they don't deserve an opinion after that because they didn't put themselves forward in that position. In some beliefs, you know, because it's the people, I'm just going to generalise the hell out of this, but it's the people watching rugby that have the biggest opinions, not the people passing the ball on the field. You know, they make the best choice at the time. But when, you know, you've got these critical assessors who are just guys that sit there with an opinion, very different from if you've played at high level something. You know, if I've danced at high level something. I haven't danced at a very high level like I'm going to yet, but it's coming, and then I can have an opinion. But I can look at something and go, oh, I like that. You know? You can look at that, or
it's a level of specialisation, eh?
Yeah. That is, and I believe that I deserve an opinion out of that, because it's one, what I like and what I'd like to reproduce in a way, because they do it well and I want to do it equally as well, if not better. You know, chasing the Australian champions. That's what I want.
You could do that off the floor.
No. You know, do you not want me to talk?
I do want you to talk.
So I've been sitting here with a lot of self-speak. It challenges me on so many levels, so many. So I know that if you're self-speaking negatively, you can dine on that for days or years or months or hours or as long as you want. And it's harder to hold positive thought than it is for some people, than it is to dine out on the other stuff. For some people, you know, it's like the stuff that isn't great is the first thing that hits your head and goes in and all that sort of stuff. And in levels of profession and study and learning and education, for trades and for things like that, I'm quite judgmental of anyone who thinks they're good and really they're shit. But you pay them to come and do a job for you. They tell you how good they are, or you expect it because you're paying them good money, and they do not provide the service or whatever that you require. And I just think to myself in a judgmental way, you're just full of shit. You just cannot deliver what you have spent 4 years learning, and you're not the tradesman that I wanted to have come in. So over the years, I've been let down by a lot of people. And this is internal speak coming out. Just going, well, actually, I gave you a chance, and you proved you weren't as good as you said you were, and I've paid you, and then I fixed it myself. So this whole the subject for me is you know, there's the ability for people to self-promote. I just sometimes really fail to see the levels of honesty, of self-honesty or humbleness within it. You know, how does a person be humble when they think that they're the best, or they you know, like, there's a sense of balance, and for me, like, if I was in a group of 4 people or 5 people, and this is how I operate all the time, and Alex would probably maybe you'd recognize this with me, even though I can do something, that doesn't mean I'm the guy who's going to do it. If someone else I think is better to do the job, I'll let them do it. So that leads me not stepping forward, because everybody on a team deserves a chance, right? And afterwards, when I go, by golly, they weren't as good as I thought. They had a chance, and then you got to let a little thing go, because Karen will tell you I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to certain things, and then not when it comes to others.
Man, you do walk, like, externally, from how I see it, you really walk on that tipping line. It's like, on one side it's responsibility, and on the other side it's how much of a tight ass you're being. You know, it's that.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah.
Do I want the responsibility of doing that job? If not, then I've got to pay someone. But then I could have had the responsibility to do that job, and they didn't do it to what my standard would be. And
that has
line.
been a bit of it, and it's that balance. But like you would experience that too. Like you're a mechanic. If you were busy on that day and you had to give it to someone else, and they came back and the oil filter was loose, how would you feel?
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because you just didn't have time, or you thought someone was better suited on the day because you were training someone or dancing or doing something else, you know, and you give it to someone you believe is, and then, hey, it happens. Then you just let
or
it
you
go
watch
and
something happen and you're like, oh, good luck. I'll see that soon.
See, it does happen. And, you know, so, I mean, for me, this subject runs with a bit of judgment, and I'm sorry, because people who you know, I love the fact that people can be creative and expressive, and think it's amazing, and I don't get it. And that's beautiful for them. And like Shanon's saying, do they need to keep saying that they're not that good? Do they? I mean, I did a painting once, which was I thought was quite abstract, and all it was some paint left over from me spray painting models, and I liked it. And I was like, fuck, that's awesome. I showed someone, they go, well, that's shit. You know, and so honesty's fantastic sometimes, and sometimes it's just a reality check. Right?
It's a level of importance, though,
Yeah.
Within, like, how is it a level of importance? Within your beliefs and how you feel at the time, and what it means to you in the future, and what it means to you then in the present.
Yeah.
And, you know, what it meant to you in the past. And that has, within that, the way that you've got to discuss with yourself once you've made a decision, at any level of to commit or not to commit to something, then you'll discuss with yourself after that. You know, there'll be a continuous discussion while you're doing it.
I've had some of them too. It's like, oh well, too late now. Like imagine this on a downhill on his bike. He's like, oh well.
yeah.
We're moving.
Got to live with the consequences. It's like someone climbing up a mountain after having a bottle of wine and a beer the night before. I'm sure they have lots of self-talk. Lots of self-talk while they're getting up there.
So it seems like it's a rolling ball as I'm listening, or a game that we play with ourselves, or it's just a rolling, moving thing. Because whichever way we come at it, there's going to be an equal and opposite effect. And it'll only be the person perceiving it that will judge it accordingly. Like there are moments, and when the ball's rolling, I haven't got it hurtling through the air, guys. I've just got it, you know, like a little golf ball rolling down a hall concept. It's like it's constantly moving, and every rotation of the sun, let's play with that. Every rotation of the sun, we have a new opportunity to keep on rolling. And these inner self talks are there, and they'll affect us, but maybe they just affect the direction we roll. Just like a little, you know, if it was a wood floor or there was something there, it would bang us off in a different direction. So having the beautiful balance that you bring in, and then everything, it's just a part of our very process. If we're wanting something different, then part of it will be influenced by the talk that we have inside of ourselves and outside of ourselves. I didn't intend that to go so deep, but I really did.
That is it. Like as the ball rolls, when you're in a positivity, wealthy mindset in how you're talking and communicating to you, to others, to your dog, to the chair you sit on, to the coffee you drink, to the food you have, you know, the positivity rolls. Yes, people have days, you know.
Yeah, so that's a momentum thing.
Yeah, and in a way it snowballs.
Yeah.
Same with unhealthy, negative existence and talking, because it's a
According to you.
it's an existence that you can have, and it's not really, you don't really know much else until someone goes, oh, or until you make a decision of a compare and contrast. Oh, I want that. They look so happy.
Yeah.
So it can snowball each way.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if I was a rolling ball and I got caught on something, it's that statement. After a while, it's like, I feel stuck. Because I haven't got that momentum going on it. So maybe stuckness is when it's just a consistent, it's just a consistency of the one space without the rolling, the goods and the bads and the equal, so that it all equals out. Maybe that's a cool metaphor for the feeling of being stuck. And so sometimes when you feel stuck, you actually have to, if I'm still playing the ball thing, you've got to get the momentum again to go, or just someone just pushes you and off you go.
Don't be a pussy. Sorry, it's all I heard when you said that. It was just a point of like, yeah, come on, Alex. Go off and do it.
Alrighty, we are at the 10 o'clock. Let's, whatever you'd like to round your full conversation up with as a contribution.
So I guess it's an interesting topic. I mean, it put me within. So, and it brings other people out straight away, and I'm like, well, okay, self-speak. Yep, it's probably in every second of everyone's day while their waking day, and golly knows what happens when we're asleep. Between dreaming and whatever else that happens for us. Yeah, useful tools if anyone's interested in useful tools to change their to stay in useful thought. I guess they could search for it, because that's really cool to stay in useful, positive thought.
Just feels better, that's all.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go after this and talk nicely to my cruiser. And probably
internally or externally, Alex?
Very loudly, because I love you, even though you're orange. Yeah, very, very externally gonna.
Yeah, well, on that note and on that line, after this, I'm going to tell myself, New Zealand's Got Talent 2021, be aware, watch out.
Total package.
Total package is on its way, 2021.
Sing and dance, bro. Sing and dance. NZ Idol.
Awesome.
The total package.
Yeah.
Sing, dance, and comedic performance.
There we go. Just keep practicing.
That's the way.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much. My summary of that is, my takeaway is the rolling ball. That came to me as a really useful metaphor and part of something that might help me this afternoon with a client that I have. So that's cool.
Beautiful.
It's my take. Awesome. Thank you very, very much, guys. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah. Where do we turn? Thank you.